Namaskar and welcome to Daily Global Insights, episode 310. A shout out to our viewers to like this program so that it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Friday, the 18th of February, and here are some of the things that are happening around the world. Russia and Europe, the Ukraine developments. Diplomacy appears to be faltering as nations slug it out in the United Nations with Russia and China on one side and Western nations led by United States warning Russia of dire consequences. Shelling in eastern Ukraine spelled renewed fears of Ukraine invasion as Russia and United States expelled diplomats. German army reinforcements reach Lithuania as war crescendo gains momentum in Europe. Lithuania warns banks of cyber attacks, power cuts amidst fears of war. Sridharji, welcome to our channel as guest host. I'm sorry, sir. And now there is still a little bit of possibility that looks like there could be a war, or I don't understand. I thought Putin got what he wanted from China. I'm trying to read what is going on, sir. I'm a little confused. What do you think is happening, sir?
Good morning, good day to everybody. Happy to be here. On this program, what's happening is very clear. Russia has clear strategic objectives, and it is in pursuit of those strategic objectives. The strategic objectives are very simple: that Ukraine does not join NATO, autonomy to the eastern provinces that have sought autonomy, where you have Russian majority or Russian sympathizers within Ukraine. He does not want any military armed weaponry and any missile shields around Russia, especially around the old Eastern Bloc and the former Russian republics, such as Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and any of those places. So I think he's pursuing that path. He's very much moving towards that agenda. I don't believe that the China gas deal, that China-Russia gas deal, has anything to do with what his pursuits are. That's just basically a strategic deterrence. I don't even know whether China is going to be able to leverage much of those resources. He's still very much reliant on the European Nord Stream 2 pipeline being open, as much as Germany and France and other European nations are reliant on.
Sarji, this Nord Stream 2 pipeline, it's almost finished. It's just a few kilometers left. How do you think the United States stopped that? Short of telling Germany that our troops that are stationed in Germany are going to go and make sure that nothing gets built.
It's fascinating that you pose the question. I believe that eventually the Germans and the French, who have pursued the path of diplomacy, will prevail, and I think Russia will work with them. They don't want war again, having tasted World War II. Russia doesn't want to occupy Germany. Russia doesn't want to occupy France. Russia doesn't want to occupy Western Europe. This whole notion of cyber threats, and that goes on. Espionage has gone on. It's not that as though the mainland Western Europe is not spying. So spying is an integral part of living these days. So I think my view is that Russia will eventually achieve the strategic objectives of some limited autonomy to the Ukrainian east, where you have Russian sympathizers. It will achieve NATO not granting the status to Ukraine. I think they will also defer the missile shield for a period of time. And Nord Stream 2 pipeline will be open. And I think that we'll see this within the next 3 to 4 months, G.
Thank you, sir. And let's take a look at what is happening in our own United States of America. As the inflation level reaches an all-time high, the Russia-Ukraine war could push it to 10% plus. As the People's Convoy heads towards Washington, D.C., this is in the United States, just like in Canada, something that I had warned in a monologue a few days ago. Police action looks imminent in Ottawa. Former Obama administration official says Biden is dishonest on inflation. Wow, chinks in the armor, Sridharji.
Steve Ratner, who is the former Treasury Secretary counselor within the Obama administration, says Supply chains cannot be blamed for the inflation that Biden is talking about. If anybody had listened to the Biden press conference that happened, there was a lot of questions around inflation, and he was reflecting and he was trying to deflect the answers coming out. It's very evident that United States has inflation as a result of excess liquidity, as a result of logistical failures, as a result of price increases, as a result of shutdowns, and so disruption in people's normal lives, and you are beginning to see price rises quite steep, and much of the food being delivered through delivery vehicles and logistics rather than people doing a lot of shopping. I think we talked about this in some of the DGIs as to how there has been challenges around the mandates causing workers not being able to come to either ports, or workers not being able to work, or people not being able to come to shops. All has resulted in rising prices. And there is a belief that the inflation could touch 10% in the event of any kind of incursions and any issues continuing on this Russia-Ukraine situation, and where there seems to be a lot of rhetoric going on either side of the aisle.
And Pennsylvania's universal mail-in ballot law suffers another defeat in a state court as it heads to the Supreme Court on the 8th of March. This is important, folks. I had a monologue yesterday about voting, and you can see that as 2022 elections approach, there will be even more such legislations coming where each party, be it red or blue, are going to try and do something that will help them. Middle Eastern illegal immigrants now form part of the group making their way to porous southern borders. See, this is just one of those biggest disasters of this Biden administration. They tried to send their vice president to manage it. She doesn't want to go. And when she is asked, she says, I also didn't go to Europe. A very flippant answer. And now the southern borders appear to be again porous. And now people are having, maybe they even saw DGI, that they know that there is an easy way to get into the United States. Is that what is happening, Sridharji?
Well, I think the southern borders have always been porous because we removed ICE, Immigration Control Enforcement. We limited the number of CBP, Custom Border Patrol officials. We left wide parts of the border open. We have seen furor and chaos, either on the Arizona side or on the Texas side. And then both Texas and Arizona had to mobilize their own forces to mitigate. So the news is out. And so now what we are witnessing is not just the Central American refugees or Central American illegals trying to get in. We are now having, I think we covered this again, but close to 100 nations illegals were trying to make their way. Some of them are under the security umbrella, and somehow the Department of Homeland Security dismissed it. The latest set of people that they're detecting are from Turkey, people trying to make their way. Again, a report is breaking out that a number of security threat illegal aliens from Afghanistan have made their way, and they have been let into United States. So we have a huge security issue. I mean, you look at any dimension, the Biden administration is faltering. I know there's a lot of Democrats who watch this show who are very flippant in terms of some of their observations without being cognizant of the facts and the reality of what United States is confronting. Crimes, illegals, strikes, inflation, gasoline and gas, natural gas supplies being cut, whatnot. And then there's very sympathetic, what you call district attorneys being lenient on some of the criminals who have been let loose. So it's quite amazing what is going on. And the border is one of the big 5 major items of issues that the Biden administration is facing, sir.
Sridharji, hypothetically, I want to ask you a question, sir. Let's say come November, the Congress as well as Senate end up with Republican majorities. What can that do to stop this madness?
Well, I think once you have, very important to get both House and Senate Once they have House and Senate, it is technically the government in power. Executive branch can only act based on the recommendations that come through. So Biden has to resort to executive actions, but the House and Senate, which if it is under the Republican majority, can begin to enforce actions that could undermine, what Biden may be trying to accomplish, or some of the administration officials may be trying to accomplish. So it's very important to have both House and Senate swinging to the opposite side to bring any kind of sanity. I'm not very confident that the Republicans are going to prevail. Something could happen, and infighting within Republicans, whatever it may be. Let's hope that there is at least a divided government, so that there are some checks and balances.
And my next item is going to reflect exactly that. In a 46-47 vote, the Senate blocked an amendment prohibiting tax dollars from going to enforcement of Mr. Biden's vaccine mandate. So, see, this vaccine mandate itself has been a topic of much debate, isn't it, Sridharji?
Hey, it is. I think it's just not the vaccine debate. Tagged into that bill is the prevention of the government shutdown, which was technically likely to happen today. Lo and behold, as you could expect, they thought that there were at least 3-4 Democrats who were not well, Dianne Feinstein and so on. They thought that somehow Republicans will turn up. Well, lo and behold, 4 Republicans did not turn up, which resulted in all the amendments that Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Mr. Kennedy, all of them proposed went out of the window. So the mandate, the Republican move to quell the mandate fails, and Biden continues with the mandate, as well as also the House was able to get through, and the Senate as well, the budget resolution, which allows non-shutdown of the government. Perhaps, who knows, that there could be another austerity or another relief bill on its way. Whether it is 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion remains to be seen. So I think the Republicans have not got their act together, and Democrats is also divided. So what we have is a very, very divided administration across both sides of the aisle, which is why we have a paralysis in the country.
So, to your knowledge, were any of the senators down with COVID?
I don't believe so, sir. I don't believe so. I don't know. I don't believe so. There are mechanisms by which they will be able to, but I just don't believe so.
I see. In Asia news, US has no intention to engage with China on Indo-Pacific economic framework, but is working with its neighbors who share the same vision of free and open region devoid of threats and coercion. China uses the UN session on Ukraine to rebut US and Western allies' action in Asia. Japanese PM Mr. Kishida urges Putin toward diplomacy to resolve Ukraine crisis. Sridharji, 3 things here. China is clearly on the side of Russia, and now the COVID crisis is completely forgotten. People have completely forgotten that China was the one who was responsible for this, and it's as if everything is going normal, sir. They can easily let loose another accidental release of a virus because elections are coming.
Well, you're hitting a very good point around COVID. What about cyber attacks?
Yes.
What about the interference and the presence of a lot of activist Chinese footprint within the United States and potential breach into a number of organizations? What about some of the other, satellite-based attacks? What about South China Sea? What about some of the trade-related issues? So you have a whole raft of issues which were looming, including the North Korean missiles and hypersonic missiles and long-range ballistic missiles or medium-range ballistic missiles, which they seem to be at will, launching in the Korean Peninsula. So you have a whole raft of issues that seems to have taken a backseat. I don't know who engineered this unwarranted Russia-Ukraine crisis. Maybe everybody will say it was Russia, but be it as it may, the world has clearly got distracted itself and more trouble looming in the horizon, sir.
And ASEAN fails to achieve consensus on Myanmar issue, and both sides are holding their respective positions as Cambodia tries to mediate. And we'll go on to India news. This we know about ASEAN. In India news, India prepares for evacuation of students and others from Ukraine as war threat looms. India rebuts hijab issue charges against it and asks it not to be vested elements, not to let vested elements run the agenda. Sridharji, a lot of interesting thing has happened on hijab. We have put out a lot of monologues for viewers if you want to know a little bit more about what PGurus sees it or how PGurus sees it. This is the first time you are weighing in, sir. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I'm weighing in on a very specific point as it relates to OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, which technically in many ways they remain silent. But whenever you see the hand of few countries such as either Pakistan or Turkey or someone noodling on Indian issues, you find that India gets away. So what the rebuttal from the Ministry of External Affairs is very strong and says, just focus on your own affairs. Don't kind of come in. Don't let your agenda be distracted by some vested elements within. India enjoys a very cordial and very good relationship with many OIC countries, most notably the West Asian, many of the West Asian countries. India has a very strong trade partnership and also very harmonious relationship. As we speak, almost India is eternally seems to be present in the Expo Summit, and there's a number of things that are coming out of that event that is going on, especially between India and UAE.
And India will hold the G20 presidency from December 1st, 2022 to November 30th, 2023. And the Indian government will establish a dedicated secretariat and adjacent forums to manage the coordination of efforts. Surprisingly, I don't think India's MSM has picked up on this, Sridharji. It's a rare honor.
It is. I think that it makes a passing reference. India assumes charge on December 1st, 2022. It runs till November 30th, 2023. The last conference, the culminating conference will be, the last event will be in New Delhi, which is a very big boost coming on the back of India, having the chairmanship of the United Nations Security Council. So India's footprint, be it in G7 security conferences, various security conferences, Quad, as well as this G20, it reflects its growing stature in the global stage.
And Africa-related news, France ends military operations in Mali after almost a decade of fighting with jihadi forces. Macron meets with African leaders ahead of the EU-AU summit to discuss redeployment in Sahel. We don't have to touch upon this. We have been the first or among the first to warn the world of the dangers in the Sahel region. And in West Asia, Iran nuclear deal that is being worked on by world powers, US, EU, Russia, China, Germany, France, UK, and Iran place prisoners, enrichments, cash first prior to oil sanctions. UN appoints arbitration committee to probe apartheid charges against Israel. This news, Sridharji, and this is the last item for today. Maybe you can weigh in and then we can call it a wrap, sir.
Well, I think this is the Iran nuclear discussions is again another Biden administration garland because they want to go back to the 2015 Obama Accord. So those discussions are going on as they run out of the time. The time expires on the controls around the enrichment. What have they done? They are basically trying to say, cash and prisoners and other things, including enrichment, but before they come to oil. Now, what Iran is going to say, that's my number one priority, lift, along with sanctions, restrictions on access to the materials for civil purposes, lift the sanctions on oil. That's what they're going to say. As with regard to Israel, there's no surprise. You can see that there is a progressive left and liberal positioning that is going on in United Nations. They're trying to make every effort to undermine Israel. This is a Palestinian plea, which is to say that Israel has used apartheid as a policy in terms of discriminating in the West Bank areas. let us see what comes out of it.
Thank you very much, Sridharji. We'll be back again, rise bright and early on Monday morning. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a good weekend and enjoy yourself, and hope by the time we get to Monday that we'll be out of the Russia-Ukraine crisis.